Mr. Speaker, the member for Outreach East stated that the government will use the framework and perspective of the victim.
In time of the honourable member for Laventille East Morvant has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I beg the time for the honourable member be extended by 30 minutes, speaking time.
Honourable members, the question is that the speaking time of the honourable member for Laventille East Morvant be extended by 30 minutes. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. The speaking time of the honourable member for Laventille East Morvant is extended by 30 minutes. You may continue, honourable member.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, the Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you very much to my colleagues. So I hope you all continue to listen, okay? Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the member for Outreach East stated that the government will use the framework and perspective, I'm quoting, perspective of the victim. Mr. Speaker, if that is so, then they would not have dismantled SORT. So I don't want the honourable member for Outreach East to come here and give us old talk. Because if you are thinking about the victim, you will not have dismantled SORT, you would not have cancelled the OPVs, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to set the record straight for the umpteenth time that SORT was never an illegal unit, Mr. Speaker. The soldiers in SORT were never given powers to operate as police officers. Policing matters were under the purview of the now Deputy Commissioner of Police, Morvant Richardson, who was a member of SORT, Mr. Speaker.
What?
Mr. Speaker?
The Deputy Commissioner of Police?
Yes. So he is aware of everything. He's very much aware of that. He is the person the police reported to in SORT. Oh. So soldiers did not have any policing powers in SORT. Mr. Speaker, soldiers never illegally performed police duties as was stated by the Attorney General. The PNM government never allowed soldiers to engage in police duties, and there was no reason to precept soldiers in SORT. That never took place, Mr. Speaker. Contrary to the misleading assertions led by the Attorney General, so typical of him, soldiers never had police powers. Mr. Speaker, the soldiers in SORT were highly skilled and trained. Many of them had to attend the Specialist Investigations Course 1 and 2. Many were involved in survival operations, and many were trainers in the use of firearms, Mr. Speaker. And they were experts, some of them, in information gathering. A lot of them were IT persons. As a matter of fact, right now, all of the police crime scene investigators are SORT trained. All of the police crime scene investigators are SORT trained. Mr. Speaker, civilians also had to undertake specialist training, including police skills and investigation courses, and were then installed as SRPs once they met the requirements. They were always supervised by an experienced police officer, and asked the Deputy Commissioner of Police Richardson, or the new star on television. There is a my star, and there is now a new star, Morvant Richardson. Mr. Speaker, the Attorney General stated that soldiers were precepted under SORT. That is not true. Another one of his deliberate inaccuracies, Mr. Speaker. Both the Attorney General and the Minister of National Security stated that there were 400 soldiers in SORT. That again is another misleading of the House, Mr. Speaker. That is not true. SORT was also made up of members of the fire service and the prison service, Mr. Speaker, retired military and police officers and civilians. Mr. Speaker, where did they get that number from? They just pulled it out of a hat, as usual. Mr. Speaker, comments were made by the minister that the PNM was doing it and they are now regularizing it. That is the furthest thing from the truth, Mr. Speaker. That is not so. And it is clear that no Defence Force persons had the authority, privilege, or incentives of the police service. And this is not analogous to SORT. Please don't try to fool the people of Trinidad and Tobago. If SORT was illegal, why didn't they bring legislation to make it legal instead of dismantling it and coming up in instead of dismantling it and coming up with an illegal flying squad.
That's right.
After so many taxpayers' dollars was invested in it, why was it dismantled? Why was it dismantled? Mr. Speaker, why the government, after bad talking, sought and after they unceremoniously dismissed many of the officers, including the head, whom they had to handsomely compensate for his illegal dismissal, now trying to bring an arm of the military under the command of the minister? What war are they preparing for? Mr. Speaker, the officers in SORT who were not dismissed, many of them were dismissed, and those who are not dismissed are presently doing nothing in Piarco, which is the intelligence and intercept unit, and in Macoya, which is the surveillance unit. Why are there many men not doing anything? Is that spite?
Yes.
They are there in Macoya and Piarco going to work every day and have nothing to do, Mr. Speaker. Trained men with taxpayers' dollars. Taxpayers' dollars, we spent millions training those members in SORT. And they are there doing nothing, Mr. Speaker. Okay? The officers are being paid to do nothing. Spite, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it was reported that one Mr. Denny and Mr. Alonso are now based at the Piarco Intercept Unit, handpicked for the job. Mr. Denny and Mr. Alonso in the Intercept Unit, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the minister mentioned that they fixed SIA. How? By handpicking loyalists to do intelligence? Mr. Speaker, under the PNM administration, employees of the intelligence unit were never hired based on political affiliation. They got their job because of their qualifications, because of their skills, because of their competence, Mr. Speaker. They went through a rigorous interview process and tests, including lie detector, in which we were assisted by foreign professionals. And Mr. Speaker, I want to set the record straight as I'm hearing about crime went up. In 2010, crime was trended down once, Mr. Speaker, so that is not true. In 2010, crime was trending downwards. Between 2009 and 2010, kidnapping virtually disappeared, Mr. Speaker, and we have records to show that. Thanks to the special anti-crime unit of Trinidad and Tobago, kidnapping went to zero, Mr. Speaker.
Even murders went down.
Mr. Speaker, the members of SORT went through a rigorous interview process and tests, including lie detector, and we were assisted by foreign professionals. So there was no political interference, Mr. Speaker. Part of the escalating crime problem in Trinidad and Tobago is because the government has dismantled the independent intelligence operations and national security of this country and replaced it with a set of partisan political operatives, some of whom are even willing to take the fall for them. Poor hero, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I speak about the intercept unit, better known as the phone tapping unit, Mr. Speaker, as I speak about the intercept unit, better known as the phone tapping unit, I would like to know why is my phone tapped. Mr. Speaker, I was reliably informed that my phone and those of my colleagues and some of you all on the other side, your phones are tapped, Mr. Speaker. What was the purpose of the interception of communication bill, Mr. Speaker? To my recollection, there's a procedure to follow before tapping someone's phone, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the honourable member for Siparia came here to this honourable house and spoke about phone tapping and so on, and it is being done now under this administration. Mr. Speaker, well, something has to be done, but phones are tapped, Mr. Speaker. Okay? Mr. Speaker, decisions concerning the fight against crime are not ones to be taken lightly and to be done in a fight manner. Mr. Speaker, this decision of the UNC-dominated coalition government is yet another unworkable, impractical, and unconstitutional one. And Mr. Speaker, we have the firm belief that the military should be used sparingly and on a strategic as needed basis to provide security and protection when needed. And the emphasis has to be on holding the Commissioner of Police, its deputy commissioners and the division commanders accountable and responsible for the elevated levels of crime in our country. Where it is found that personnel are not performing, then they should be removed. It is time for the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Speaker, to focus on effectively and efficiently managing the police service and not his peripheral self-enhancement pursuits. It is time for the Minister of National Security to focus on the elevating crime situation in our country and stop playing the numbers game, Mr. Speaker. He has resorted to counting figures by months now, Mr. Speaker. Give us meaningful statistics. Let us have year-to-year figures. Stop insulting our intelligence. All of a sudden is this month is so-and-so and that month is so. I want to hear 2010 to 2011, 2011 to 2012. Give us those figures. Yes. Don't come with months. All of a sudden, the counting has changed from year, but it is now months. All right? Trying to insult our intelligence, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is time for him to deliver on the promise he made to the people of Trinidad and Tobago that if crime is not down in 6 months, he will exit. Why is he still here, Mr. Speaker? Why is he still here? It was a promise. Instead, he focuses on everything else, including macroing 2 meetings. He could not even do that good because, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Dilema said he was not there. He knows about a meeting in Morvant and a meeting in Maracas and Joseph, and who was there? But he knows nothing. He knows nothing about the new flying squad, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, he knows about meetings. He came in this honorable house. He came in this honorable house, Mr. Speaker, and he spoke about meetings in Morvant and Maracas and Joseph. He knows who was there and who was not there. Clearly, he didn't mark out good enough because the lemma is saying he was not there. But yet, Mr. Speaker, he knows nothing about the new flying squad, which he's supposed to know about. And Mr. Speaker, we are concerned about the attempts of this government to militarize this nation. We see no benefit or wisdom in granting of police powers to the military. And in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I would like to refer to a newspaper article in the Express dated Thursday, March 7th. And the headline states, and the Member of Parliament for the Morvant West spoke about this article. Mr. Speaker, the headline states, Defense Force will follow decision set by government. And Mr. Speaker, this was an interview report I had with the Chief of Defense Staff, whose nickname in the Army is Roger Roger. And Mr. Speaker, in military terms, Roger means yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And Mr. Speaker, the Chief of Defense Staff in that article tap danced his way around the whole issue surrounding this bill. In other words, he removed himself as a key advisor on Defense Force matters and stated that he is just executing policy.
Yes, yes.
So, Mr. Speaker, since all past Chiefs of Defense Staff advised against this bill, Mr. Speaker, did Major General Kenrick Maraj advise the Minister on this bill?
Roger.
Mr. Speaker, in essence, he is supposed to advise before policy is formed. That's how I know it, Mr. Speaker. I understand now why he's called Roger. And we are indeed, and this is not a nickname that he just got, eh? This is a nickname he had for years. Mr. Speaker, we are indeed concerned about the rise in crime in our beloved Trinidad and Tobago. But I urge the government to stop these piecemeal and knee-jerk approaches to crime. And you cannot say we are very concerned about crime, and we feel that if you have to bring legislation, stop the piecemeal approach. Come with something proper and comprehensive, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, in many countries, governments have used the military for their personal and political agendas. And Mr. Speaker, we don't trust this government. They say one thing and mean another. We don't want a mongoose gang here, Mr. Speaker. Our military has served us well and has saved our democracy. Respect our military and save our democracy. Mr. Speaker, if the government moves ahead with this amendment, they will be opening a Pandora's box, Mr. Speaker. And how will we then, Mr. Speaker, put Jack back in the box? Thanks.